Welcome to this edition of The Warning here on Substack live chat with Harry Dunn. Harry, welcome.
Steve, thank you, my friend. Good to be with you.
I wanted to ask you first off, as we get started, take me back to a week before January 6th, 2021. What's your
Yeah,
life? What's your life like?
Steve, I was a proud member of the United States Capitol Police at that time, a week before, probably 12 years of service already in. I've seen all kinds of protests. I've seen, shootings at all kinds of things. January 6th, what people don't realize, January 6th happened every 4 years since the beginning of, the inception of the Constitution and everything like that. But the only reason people know about it now is because of what happened, obviously, at the helms of Donald Trump. The Capitol was closed. We're in the middle of COVID. It was quiet. Congress people came in and they had their votes, and the tours were closed. So it was just a quiet government building. It wasn't the U.S. Capitol, obviously, as business as usual, but it wasn't open to the public. So that's what kind of makes what happens on January 6th even more crazy because, like I said, it wasn't open to the public, and it was just Congress people voting on bills and this and that.
Do you remember your first day of duty showing up at the Capitol with the
Oh,
badge?
I sure do. It was 2028, and you know what? One of my most poignant moments of early in my career is the day that they passed Obamacare. It was on a Saturday, and that was one of the biggest protests that I've been a part of. And I was like, wow, this is how government works. People protest, vote, and that's the way that it goes. There were hundreds of thousands of people at the U.S. Capitol. It was a Saturday. That's all I remember because I know we had the day off. But Congress came in rarely on a Saturday, and they passed the bill to make Obamacare law. And obviously, it was sent to President Obama to be signed. But there were thousands and thousands of protesters. Not one person attacked police officers. There were people out there having medical emergencies because it was hot, and they were out there protesting at the top of their lungs, which they're allowed to do, and which we see at the Capitol, which is one of the bedrocks of this institution of democracy. People being able to protest peacefully their First Amendment rights about their grievances towards the government.
What what made you want to become a cop? And did you become a Capitol police officer deliberately? You wanted to work at the Capitol, or did you find your way into service in the Capitol Police just by happenstance, the way life works? How did you wind up in that
I always,
force?
I always wonder, how I became a cop. I always believe in standing up for the little guy, being a voice for somebody that doesn't have one, taking on bullies. My father was a retired senior master sergeant in the Air Force, so the duty to country always stood to me. But service, playing college, semi-professional football, having the opportunity to belong to something bigger than yourself. And I feel like those are all contributing factors that led me to law enforcement. I have four sisters and a daughter, so I just am a protector by nature. So I just believe in protecting and serving, which is very crucial. A lot of people forget in the law enforcement world, you're there to serve, not only to just there to enforce laws. So I believe in serving my community. I did that. Now, the funny thing is how I became a Capitol Police officer. Well, I was going around after my football career ended, injuries. I played in the Canadian Football League for the Montreal Alouettes. And I suffered an injury there. And I was like, you know what? It's time to find a job. So I was going around to different career fairs. And I happened to go to this career fair. I said, wait, the Capitol Police pays how much? You know, so it's kind of like it's a federal job. You work for the federal government, and they started out making good money. So I was like, sign me up. And the rest is history.
And so when you're a Capitol Police officer and you meet other cops, other police officers, Metro cops, New York City cop,
Yeah.
uh, county cop, are you treated as less than in the law enforcement community by those cops in those jurisdictions?
I feel like it's a little running joke when people say about Capitol Police, oh, they got it sweet. But everybody acknowledges when something happens at the Capitol, it happens. It's not a traffic stop and the bad guys running away, which county and state deal with daily. Like that's not what happens at Capitol Police. If Capitol Police is in the news, it's because somebody tried to bring a bomb in the Capitol, or there's a shooting outside of you. There was threats made or anthrax found. Anytime Capitol Police are mentioned, it's because all hell is broken loose. So it's kind of like a running joke. So they acknowledge we know get into foot pursuits and stuff like that. That yes, there are instances where we do. Like the gyrocopter landing at the Capitol, the woman running down a high speed chase down Constitution Avenue that ended at the Capitol in the shooting. It's always a big deal when anything happens at the Capitol. One, because it's one of the three branches of government. It's where it's arguably the most powerful block in the world. So it's very, but law enforcement, yeah, they bust our chops a little bit, but they acknowledge that when it happens at the Capitol, it really happens.
And so the culture of the force is you got to be ready 100% of the time because you don't know.
You don't know. And also, especially in this climate right now, our number one job is to protect members of Congress so they can do their job, their constitutional responsibilities in a safe and secure environment. Think about the environment that we're in right now. A lot of Congress's approval rate is it's one of the lowest than it's ever been in history. So a lot of people are unhappy with Congress. And you know what? They come to the Capitol and they make it clear how they feel about these elected officials. Now, our job as Capitol Police officers. Now, I'm a former Capitol Police officer, but our job was to make sure they are safe, no matter who they are. Whether it's Marjorie Taylor Greene, whether it's Chuck Schumer, whether it's AOC, Ted Cruz, it doesn't matter. Our job is to make sure that they are safe. It's a running joke. You elect them, we protect them, and that's kind of like what we do at the Capitol Police. So it's really a job that takes service at its core, especially in this day and age where so many elected officials have turned their backs. What a lot of people think they turned their backs on law enforcement, especially Capitol Police in the wake of January 6th. It's so important that those officers remember that obligation. But 3 years after January 6th, I worked at the Capitol. Even though members of Congress were on Fox News talking shit about me, people were, discrediting what happened on January 6th. They were talking bad about Capitol Police. They weren't acknowledging what we went through, but I was still there protecting them because I wasn't protecting them as a person. I was protecting that institution. 100 years from now, that person may not exist, but God willing, that seat is still going to exist.
Okay. And we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about the institution.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to ask you one last question before we turn into that direction. So you're a Capitol Police officer. You have found your way into government service.
Yeah.
You have reported for duty at the Capitol. What's it like from your perspective to work at the Capitol and to walk around there at night alone under the rotunda? You have seen it in ways that very, very, very few people have,
Yeah.
and have been into every nook and cranny of it. I think it is, um, in my view, really without much competition. It's the most beautiful
Absolutely.
building in the United States. But what are your impressions of working there and being in it and being present with the history there and Statuary Hall?
Man, I'm glad that you brought that up. I thank you for doing that. It is not lost upon me that I am one of the luckiest SOBs in the world to have the opportunity to serve my country by guarding that beautiful building. I mean, it's not lost on me that slaves built that building, and me as a black man had the honor, the privilege of protecting their work. Outside of just the symbolism of, the institutions, just front and center, I was able to protect the work that slaves built. Like, it's not lost on me, and it's so, but it's so beautiful. Like, as a child, like I grew up in the DC area, so as a child, I never visited the Capitol. First time I've been to the Capitol is when I got a job there. And so many people, Washingtonians or people that live, take it for granted. But once I had the opportunity, and I started the job as what, 23, 24-year-old kid. But as I became a grown adult and starting to appreciate it, I mean, sometimes I worked day shift for the majority of my career, but some nights I would go in 3 in the morning and I would work midnight shifts sometimes, and I would just sit in the rotunda in my lunch break and just sit in peace and just like, man, this is amazing. It's the pinnacle of what American democracy is. The U.S. Capitol, just the symbolism alone, and that it burnt me up. And I may be getting a little ahead of myself. How it was treated and how it was desecrated on January the 6th. Because I revered that building, not even the institution, just the building so much.
So, where are you when you get the sight, first line of sight of the crowd, the mob?
Yeah.
What is your preferred word?
Terrorists, insurrectionists.
Terrorists, the
Yeah.
terrorists coming up the. Where do you get your first look at them coming up where you say, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
They're how far away are they? Where are you just in the whole melee of things?
Yeah. So my particular unit, I work called the First Responders Unit. So First Responders was responsible for the exterior of the Capitol building, not the cannon, not the Longworth, not the Rayburn. The Capitol building exterior is where I was. And at the beginning of the day, I mean, my shift started at 7 a.m. But I got to work around 6:30, 6:45 for our roll call that we had in the morning. And as we pulled up into work in the morning, people were already gathered out there on the East Lawn, waving flags, having music playing. I mean, literally felt like a pep rally all day long. I mean, short of people throwing cornhole and shotgun and beers, I mean, it was a freaking pep rally all day long. Now, as the day went on, the crowds continued to swell. They continued to grow. I mean, people were calling out on the radio, hey, we got 150 people heading eastbound towards the Capitol from the ellipse. Hey, we got a group of 100 people headed southbound to the Capitol from Union Station. All day long, these calls were just going out on the radio. And next thing you know, it's thousands upon thousands of people at the Capitol. Now, the moment that it wasn't so I didn't see the actual violence start. I heard it on the radio, in which I ran over around to the west side, where they were coming from. But the thing that really got me going is when I heard the radio transmissions about two pipe bombs that have been found, one at the DNC, one at the RNC. Both buildings are 2 and 3 blocks away from the Capitol, respectively. And those calls drew units away from the Capitol, units that were there on crowd control, monitoring the crowds. And then when I heard the call that an officer had been assaulted and they were calling for help, then it's just like all hell broke loose.
Let me back you up a little bit. You said at the beginning of the day, you show up, there's people at the Capitol, and you describe an atmosphere that doesn't sound like, at least at the beginning of the day, has a lot of menace to it. It sounds
Sure.
more like a goofball gathering.
Yeah.
What talk about that, like through the day. When does the edge start? When does the menace start to drip in? When do you start to just feel you're a city kid, right?
Yeah.
I grew up in a part. When do you feel, right, that, hey, like I got to have my head on a swivel here a little bit?
Well, you know what? It wasn't even the amount of people there. Like, listen, I worked at the U.S. Capitol when they had the second Million Man March. So that mean there are thousands upon thousands. I mean, we worked all kinds of inaugurations. Any event, major event at the Capitol, the police are outnumbered. I mean,
Right.
our force, every officer, every chief, every is 2,000 people. I mean, on any you get a good protest on any given day, we're outnumbered. So you're always going to be the March for Life, which is a peaceful protest that supports, overturning of Roe v. Wade. They are thousands upon thousands of people there. This just felt different. It just felt different as the people started to come. Now they were goofy. They had their costumes on, face paint in America. I mean, you saw the guy that walked through with the shaman dude. Like it's just goofy. Like I'm not scared of him. Like you see him walking down the street, like whatever, dude. You're a loser. You're a weirdo. Like, and that's what it was. However, thousands of weirdos incited by the president creates a hell of vacuum for a hostile, volatile situation. And that's what it became. You know what? Listen, everybody at the Capitol that day was not violent. There were people who there were peacefully protesting. There were thousands of people who were peacefully protesting, thousands who did not assault police officers. But that does not negate the fact that there were thousands of people who did assault police officers. And those thousands who were peaceful, they shouldn't have been there anyway because we had to use our focus on them, even though we didn't know they weren't going to attack us. Everybody there was a threat that day because you weren't supposed to be there.
What do you say to the argument that, and I will make it to you, I have somebody that I know just made a version of this to me, and I'm curious about your response to it, which is, so you just said, right, the key thing, real life. You
Yeah,
strip away all the bullshit. So none of those people should have been there in the first place either. And I agree, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
now, a lot of knuckleheads in the country, right? If we
Yes,
locked
sir.
up every knucklehead in America as a criminal, right? We need to start building more jails, right? Immediately, right?
Absolutely.
Many more. Um, what this person says to me is that, yeah, there's the violent criminals that are in the Capitol, but there's a fair amount of people that are knuckleheads that wandered in and are looking around and don't have their feet up in Nancy Pelosi's
Sure.
desk. And I'm a hard liner on this, but where are you on that question and those people? And I'm sure you've
Yeah,
heard that argument, and I'm not very sympathetic to it. I'm curious
sure.
where you are on it.
Sure. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. Listen, there were a lot of dumb people who did wander in the Capitol. Sure, there absolutely were. I'm all for the punishment needs to fit the crime. Now, you committed a crime. You wandered to the Capitol with whatever reason. Maybe you didn't attack an officer and you just happened to wander in. There needs to be a punishment for that. You need to be held accountable. Now, I'm not suggesting that that person should do 2 or 3 years in jail. No. And you know what? To talk about like to debunk a fucking rumor that these MAGA extremists use, they're not hostages. The people that just wandered into the Capitol, they got misdemeanors, they got probation, they had to pay a $500 fine, and they were home with their families 2 days later. The people that were in jail serving long drawn out sentences were people who assaulted police officers, people who had previous run-ins with the law, people that had records, people that had history of being violent. Those are the people that were in jail. So the people that Trump got out of jail were solely people who assaulted and beat the shit out of police.
What I was saying is, we're talking about the amount of people who are locked up, convicted by juries, who are released from prison by Trump. And what I wanted to ask you was, do you have any doubt whatsoever that by the time we get to the ball falling down to touch and begin 2026, that one of those released criminals is going to kill someone somewhere in this country?
Well, shit, Steve. If you look, one has already been killed by law enforcement. I believe in Indiana, a gentleman that was pardoned. He basically had a new lease on life that Donald Trump gave him, and he's no longer with us. There's, I think, have been 10 to this point now. Forgive me, I've got the numbers not right, but it's close to 10 people um, who have already been rearrested. And listen, like I said, a lot of these people were already criminals before January 6th. They fit in perfectly because it was their nature. It was what they did. Now, listen, like I said, there were people there who were peaceful that didn't assault cops. Sure, like I acknowledge that. I concede that. But there were a lot of bad people there that day. Um, and you know what? I mean, the scary thing about it is with Donald Trump pardoning them, um, it literally green lights them to do it again.
It sure does. And so that's astounding. And I didn't know that. And that's incredible to me. 10 of these people have already been out and have been rearrested, and one of them's already been killed in a shootout with the police in Indiana.
Yes, sir. That's correct. So I feel like it's kind of like Darwin saying, Darwin, like literally saying, sitting back and say, "I got this." Like, like Jesus Christ, man.
So so when you look at the country right now and you think about your participation in these events as a police officer who is defending the institution in a life and death exigent circumstance,
Yeah,
and then you are betrayed by a faction, at least, of the members who you protect,
yeah,
and by the president who sends the mob from the Article 2 branch of government to assault the Article 1 branch of government to
yeah.
take illegitimate political power. You seem to be not cynical and angry, but idealistic and determined.
Yes, absolutely. Listen, like, don't get it wrong. I'm pissed. Like, fuck these people. Like, I live to be very candid and blunt. Fuck them. However, I like to be solutions oriented. Right now, I'm sitting. I don't know if you can see out this window right behind me. That's Lambeau Field. I'm in Wisconsin right now. I'm putting in the work. They have a Supreme Court election April the 1st, and one of the candidates out here has refused to condemn the pardons. You know what? That's enough to bring me out here to get the work done. Like, listen, 2026 is a long way away, sure, but there are elections up. There's an opportunities for us to hear our voices now. Listen, what can we do now? Donald Trump's not going to jail. Donald Trump's not going to be impeached. But there are a lot of elections up and down the ballot across the country that we can do before Donald Trump can face accountability. Their representatives, their state races. Like I said, here it's Wisconsin, it's the state Supreme Court race. So it's really important right now I'm determined, right? I'm not just going to lay down and just accept it as an inevitability that, you know what, these guys won. No, hell no. I'm not conceding. I'm not rolling over. What's the alternative? The alternative is letting Donald Trump and them win. No, I don't know how it will do. I'm praying that it's not in vain, but it's worth it. We can't. The only thing I can't do is nothing. I get people are frustrated and I get people are mad. Listen, I sat in fucking courtrooms for 4 years, man, and you know who I sat behind? The Department of Justice. But I went to court last week. You know who I sat behind? The plaintiff, because this ain't the same damn DOJ that it was 4 weeks ago. This DOJ is not for the people. This DOJ is for a person, and we got to, like, Steve. I get so damn flustered, man. Like, we got to do something. And listen, we got to do something that actually makes sense. Let's organize. Let's be involved. Don't wait until November the 5th, November the 6th to have an opinion about a damn candidate. Do your work now. Let's be involved.
There's 2,000 people on this call listening to us, and I want to talk very specifically about what Democrats must do in this moment, and what I hope that everybody takes away from this listening to you, and I'm going to ask you a bunch more questions, but I want to make this point because you've inspired me to make it. So I want everybody who's on this to think about young Harry Dunn, who I imagine is like most 23-year-old young men that I've known, myself included. And we're not thinking deeply about a lot of things. And, Harry's football career comes to an end and he's got to get a job, as we all do. And Harry winds up in the capital of the United States and winds up with a deep emotional attachment to the institution, a reverence for it, for the building, for the duty, for the obligations, and the responsibility. And in this moment of despair and miserableness in the country, of misery, while this happens, we see heroism, right? And so one of the darkest days in the history of the country produces American heroes, as it always does, right? And it produces Harry Dunn, and it produces Capitol Police officers who move to the front, who defend the office and defend the Congress. And this is elemental. This is a defense of the cornerstone of our civilization. It's very important that we all appreciate that the Capitol was saved from total destruction on September 11th
Yeah.
by the passengers of United Flight 93. Ordinary Americans crashed a commercial airliner because they knew that that plane was headed to Washington, D.C. They did it with a consciousness of action, and they gave their lives to defend what has been properly called the citadel of democracy. And so
Yeah.
now the Democratic Party has to do something, and it's tough. And I'm going to tell a story about Winston Churchill. When the French
Yeah.
fell to the Nazis got the French Navy. And the French Navy was the second largest in the world. And the British Admiralty had to make a very difficult decision, which was to sink the French fleet. And they did. And it's a chapter that's not particularly recalled, this moment where the British Navy kills thousands of French sailors and sinks the French fleet to prevent it from sailing and carrying out the aims of a fascist French government, the Vichy government. And so it denies the Nazis the use of the ships, but it signaled something else. And what it signaled is we'll do fucking anything to win.
I love that.
And
Yeah.
and so and so if you read the papers right now and you read the media, what the two Democratic leaders are saying or not saying is saying a lot.
Yeah.
And what they're saying is we have not yet attached any conditions to the opening of discussions for votes to keep the government funded.
Mm.
In order for Donald Trump to wreck the government, which seems to be his intent, the Democrats need to fund it. In other words, Democrats can protect the government by putting it into a coma.
Nobody would blame
So
them.
and so the protection of the government, and by government I don't mean a program. I mean government of the people, by the people, for the people, at the expense of programs.
Yep.
And when the government is shut down, people will be hurt. We have crossed that line, that there is going to be real suffering. not pretend suffering. And so,
Very
what Democrats have to do in this moment, I think, is to communicate very clearly that they are prepared to use the only leverage they have, which are the votes on the spending package, to say, we will shut it down. If you do not get Elon Musk and Big Balls and the rest of these computer incels out of the government, and you do not restore the inspector generals, and you do not make for a full accounting of what it is they did, we will not open the discussions to fund the government. Not that we won't give you the votes, we won't talk to you about the votes
mm-hmm.
until this stops. And don't try me pretending to be the Democratic leader, because I'll keep it shut for 2 years. And we can have a vote, and the American people can decide where we paddle next then.
In 2 years.
Because the same system that produced President Trump with 49.9% of the vote produced a one seat Republican majority, which means Democrats have leverage, but they have to be willing to sink the fleet. And
Yeah.
the deal is right now, Trump knows he's sitting across the table from people who will blink. So that's the moment we're at. That's
Yeah.
the one card the Democrats have. Like, how do you see this?
Listen, I agree with 100% of what you're saying. I think what's very important, as I'm reading some of the comments, are, and they're fantastic. Democrats need to be very honest about what's going on, and they need to be very honest about what they can and cannot do. A lot of people are saying impeach Donald Trump. It's not going to happen. It will not happen. It cannot happen. Even if you bring articles of resolution, it won't pass the House, won't pass the Senate. That's not going to happen. He's not going to jail. Elon Musk isn't going to jail. The DOJ is run by Pam Bondi. The FBI is soon to be run by Kash Patel, Donald Trump loyalists. So we need to be very honest and transparent with the public about what can and cannot happen. I'm all for protesting and everything like that. That's great. Like I said, I worked at the Capitol. Everybody protested. Absolutely get out there, make your voices heard. But actual real change, that's not going to happen. These key people don't care about pressure. Donald Trump damn sure doesn't. But these Republicans, like you just said, that same election that gave 49.9% Donald Trump produced a one seat majority. So these House of Representative members, they are under pressure. People like Mike Lawler in New York, who runs a purple district, he can't just say everything yes, Donald Trump, because he won't be in office in 2 years if he does that. There are so many other people that are in districts like that, in purple districts. Get attention. Those keep your foot on their necks. Obviously, and metaphorically speaking, got to be clear nowadays because I don't want nobody to go out there and put their foot on their. Well, maybe no, I'm joking, But no, listen, we have to get out there. You have to be understand. We're not Democrats. They're not going to codify Roe v. Wade. They're not going to pass gun legislation. They're not going to protect the Affordable Health Care Act. None of that shit's going to happen right now. We are in the middle of the fucking ocean with no life raft, with no boat in sight, and you got to fucking tread water for 2 goddamn years. That's what's at stake right now. Elon Musk isn't going to jail right now under this administration. Donald Trump, it's not going to happen. So I agree with you 100%, Steve, about shut this bitch down. Put it in a coma. You know what? Medically induced coma. We're going to come back for you, but right now it's not safe for you to be outside right now. So we're going to put you into a medically induced coma, and we're going to come back and wake you up in 2 years when Democrats or capable and functional adults take back the body of Congress.
Do you see yourself running for office again?
I did. Well, again,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I want to go to where I'm helpful, to where I'm useful. Jamie Raskin right now is my congressman. There's no way in hell I run against Jamie
Right.
Raskin. I love everything about him. He's one of our fighters out there, and he is putting in the work. But if there's an opportunity that presents that actually makes sense, like I didn't wake up and have a dream to become a who the who in their right mind wants to go join Congress? Obviously, unless somebody that has the self gratification that they want to fulfill. I don't. I want to be here for the people. That's why, like I said, I'm here in Wisconsin right now. I'm not getting paid. It's 5 degrees out here. What the hell am I doing here in Wisconsin? But listen, I haven't ruled it out to answer your question. I am. I do want to get involved with the newly elected DNC members. I believe that all of them realized the DNC had shortcomings, and you know what, we got to fix it because the old way isn't working. And I would love to be part of that solution going forward.
So I went to a premiere of a movie about Christian nationalism. I did it. I was in this thing, and I was invited to the premiere, and I wound up sitting next to two Democratic members of Congress. And I say to one of them, I won't say who it is, but I go, "How you doing?" Yeah, he goes, I'm good, Steve. And he points to his colleague. He goes, I'm better than this guy. He goes, though, because he grew up with nothing. He became like a Rhodes Scholar. He went to Harvard, and he's got the same job as Lauren Boebert. Um, and and so I was a staffer on the Hill earlier in my career. I've been around politics for my career around the campaigns. I think it would be a truly terrible job, right? To be in Congress. It would be a hard job unless, right, you literally lived between Washington and somewhere between Richmond and like New York
Yep.
City,
Yeah.
right? And then it would be manageable. But from the West Coast and all of that stuff coming in, and if you're doing it, right, people are up there 40, 50 years, right? And they
Yep.
can't walk away from it. I'm Do you have any insight, right, just about the personality type, right? They just can't get enough of this, right? I've been around it for 30 years and I still don't have my head around it. That what is it, right, about what I process as misery, right? I'm gonna lock you in a cubicle, right, and dial for dollars all day long
Yep.
to keep this job. Do you have any sense of having watched all of these people, like maybe somebody like a birder in the park, right? What makes these people tick like that?
What you mean members of Congress specifically?
Yeah, yeah.
Their thirst for power and relevancy. To be very honest, what Lauren Boebert doesn't care about her community. Like, be for real. Does she care about her community?
No.
Like, what is she doing on the weekends? What are these people doing on their weekends? Like, the people that I see that are involved in their community, those are the ones that are actually fighting and putting the work in, and the ones that actually know when to leave and walk away. I've done what I'm capable of. That's what when I ran, I didn't plan on being there longer than 10 years. I mean, shit, 5 years seems like a long time. Let me fight this moment. Let me do, and you know what? Bring somebody else in. Like it's literally a game of football. Bring their subs in or hockey. Bring the new line in. Like let somebody else do it. Like one person believing that they alone can fix it. Like, that sounds like a book, a Donald Trump book. Hello, they're stupid. Nobody can do this alone. And times are ever evolving and changing. And that's why I mean, I listen. I respect Nancy Pelosi. I respect, Steny. Those, a lot of people have done a lot of work. I mean, even Joe Biden. Like, I respect, but 50 fucking years of I listen. I get it, and also like I'm a little conflicted too because people still vote for them. If people still believe in them, then why don't they have the ability? So I'm a little conflicted when it comes to that. But I just think people need to like get rid of your ego and do what's best for people. And that's believing and giving other people a chance. You know, I, and this not a shot at anybody. Like none of the people that I name, I have utmost respect and love for all of them, and I would support and run through fucking walls for them. And I have. I mean, hell, and I will continue to. But I just believe that people. Listen, look at the amount of people that sat out this election, not because they didn't like Kamala Harris or didn't like Donald Trump. People just didn't feel heard. People felt, and you have to reach those people.
Where are you going to be 5 years from now?
Shit, man. Hold on, let me take a sip, man. That's a double IPA. It's actually really good. 5 years from now, I mean, I, I mean, prayerfully, Donald Trump isn't in the White House. I mean, that sounds crazy, right? 2028, Donald's he's out, right? But I mean, will he be? The Supreme
He's
Court
going to
just
be out, right? He's not. Nobody on this call should play along at all with the third term nonsense, right? It's he's
yeah,
not going to serve a third term. It's completely
sure.
delusional, and it's aimed at jerking everybody's chain, and we have to all of us stop doing that.
Yeah, no, I'm only being
Um,
slightly. I'm only slightly joking a little bit, but you know what? I mean, it depends on what kind of shape he leaves his country in. I mean, if the way
Bad.
we're exactly, it's bad now. So we need to have people that are willing to. I don't necessarily know if I want to continue. I'm exhausted. It's been 4 years of me fighting this fight. I would love for somebody to be able to do this. Shit. I still got. I don't. I quit my job. I didn't retire. I quit. 4 years short of a full pension. So I don't have the luxury to sit back and say I'm going to be able to collect my pension, and that's why I mean I'm doing a damn Substack and begging people to subscribe and pay so I can pay my damn bills. And sorry, this not a plea for help or anything. I'm doing okay, but I'm tired
Harry,
of
what
fighting
is the
this fight right
Substack
now.
so everybody on here can find you and
Yeah.
um
Harry Dunn, Standing Our Ground is the name of Harry Dunn, Standing Our Ground. And that's actually the name of my book, Standing Our Ground. But um, but listen, I'm just here to just meet this moment and fight, my friend. Um, I, I believe in God, and I'm whatever. If you don't, you don't. But I believe that in this moment, I'm going to be all right, and I know that people are going to take care of me. He's going to take care of me, and the only thing that I could not do is not do what I know it's right. Like I couldn't live with myself if I didn't speak. Like people say, "Oh my gosh, you're so brave to speak out on January." No, no, it's not. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't speak out. Because you got to do what's right. You know what? You know what beats this moment that we're in, Steve? It's not an executive order. It's not a resolution. It's not a protest. It's fucking moral courage, man. Somebody got to stand up and fight back against this shit.
I saw one comment that says Lauren Boebert wanted to be in Congress so she could drink and get laid, and maybe so, but she couldn't do that in Colorado. What's going on in Colorado? Maybe
Beetlejuice, right?
she shouldn't have to come to Congress. She shouldn't have to come to Congress and inflict all of that on us. I do think when I listen to you talk about your indignation at the effrontery of so many elected officials towards the institution that you revere. How did that happen? How did we
I,
get to that place over the course of your career?
you know what? I wouldn't consider myself a political person growing up. I mean, I was aware, but I think it just comes with the maturity of being an adult. I mean, I worked at the foot of government where all of our lives are affected. So like working at work. Oh, how long the house gonna be in today? Oh, what they voting on? Oh, they're voting on what? And then I get older, or I have a child, and or my parents are dealing with Medicaid and Medicare, and seeing that they're or electric or utility prices are going up, or this and that. So you start to pay attention. And like I said, I've been a solutions oriented type of person. People need to pay attention. Like people, one of the biggest things when people say I don't do politics, well, politics does your ass, and you better pay attention because they're going to do it whether you care or not. At least you can at least be educated about what the hell is coming to you, and then try to fight back, and which is what I call my whatever I'm doing right now.
Um, Harry, last question I want to ask you before giving you the floor to say whatever it is you want to say to conclude the evening with as we come up on the hour. Um, you've been around a lot of members of Congress, and seen them in ways that most people won't ever get a chance to see. Who are some of the good ones that you've really enjoyed, getting to know that are just great people, are the type of person that you want in the Congress, that you've met
Yeah.
over your long career up there on the Hill?
Well, I'm very impartial to Jamie Raskin, obviously, with him being my member of Congress. Lauren Underwood is a fantastic woman, a fantastic legislator from Illinois. She's fantastic. Dan Goldman is just people that actually Eric Swalwell is a really good friend of mine. They take this stuff personal. They're not in it for a paycheck. They are actually people that believe in fighting. Those are just some of the people that meet. There are several others, obviously, but I will tell you when you started to ask that question, my mind immediately went to who are the biggest assholes on Congress, and the people that I thought of immediately was Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham. They're the biggest pieces of shit. And like outside of politics, they're just not even nice people. Like a lot of times people would say, even Republicans, Mitch McConnell, hey, thank you, officer. Like, fuck you, dude. But at least he acknowledged it. Ted Cruz would, he wouldn't even look at Lindsey Graham is the most arrogant person running around Capitol Hill. He thinks, oh, and I hate him. Like he's a piece of shit. But I'll tell you another story. And I didn't tell, a lot of people don't know this story. I don't think I've ever told it publicly before, but here goes. Mark Wayne Mullen from Oklahoma. I considered him a nice person, a cool guy. He was a Republican. This is before Trump came along, or maybe it was during Trump coming along. But we would joke and talk about MMA and football or whatever. Um, Shortly after January 6th, Nancy Pelosi implemented metal detectors at the going into the chamber. Anybody has to go through the metal detector, even members of Congress. So as officers, this is new to us. We're like, fuck, we got to screen members. Because members, you walk in, say, I'm good, I'm a member, and you just go bypass security, whatever. That after January 6th, that was done. So to get into the chamber, all members have to go through a metal detector. They didn't like it one bit at all because we are, you know this, Steve. Don't you hinder me. I am going to vote. You can't stop me. This is about 1 week after January 6th. They're going in, and Mark Wayne Mullen, he beeps, and the officer said, "Hey, sir, you got to come back." Mark Wayne Mullen put his hands on the officer and pushed the officer. I'm going to vote. You can't stop me. It's against the law. Keep your hands off of me. And went in. So obviously, every officer heard about it. Officers are talking like, yo, like, damn, that's crazy. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I heard about it and I lost my shit. I literally walked that moment to Mark Wayne's office from the Capitol all the way to the Rayburn building. And this is 3 or 4 days after January 6th. So we're already pissed, right? Like I was ready to risk it all. Like I didn't give a fuck about consequences, none of that. So I walk over to his office and I'm like, the Capitol. From the Capitol, I walk the Rayburn subway and I'm over there. And as I'm walking, I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do? And I'm like I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing? Like, am I going to like punch him? I can't. What am I doing? And I'm talking to myself, Harry, you're tripping, but I can't stop. So I go in, I don't even knock when I open it. And I like walk past the receptionist. I look in his office. I'm like, where is he? Where? And I'm in uniform. Where is he? Like, excuse me, he's not here. And I grabbed a post-it and I said, tell him to call me when he gets this fucking message. Well, is everything okay? No, it's not okay. Tell him to fucking call me. So I start walking back to the Capitol. I'm like, I am in so much trouble. Like I didn't like hide my identity. Like I'm gonna fucking lose my job, right? 5 minutes back, walking towards the Capitol, Mark Wayne called me, and he said, "Dude, what's up, man? What's going on?" I was like, "Yo, what you mean? What's going on? Why the fuck did you assault an officer? You pushed a fucking cop after all we just went through. You have the nerve to put your hands on another officer." Dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? He's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Listen, I'm sorry. But listen, Nancy Pelosi, this ain't about Nancy Pelosi, dude. This is about you assaulting an officer. And he's like, yeah, okay, you know what? You know what? Give me the officer's number. I'll call him and I'm gonna talk to him. So I said, all right, whatever. So I said, I'll call you back. So I called the officer. I said, yo, Mark Wayne said he wants to talk to you. Can I give him your number? And the officer said, and this shit was badass. He said, tell him if he wants to talk to me, I'm in the same place he assaulted me at. So I called her back. I said, "Yo," he said, "If you want to talk to him, the same place you assaulted him," and that's the last time we spoke.
I am genuinely shocked to hear you talk about Lindsey Graham as an asshole. Right? Like I have logged hundreds of thousands of air miles with Lindsey Graham and John McCain, right? And McCain would not have tolerated Lindsey Graham acting like an asshole like that. Just would not. McCain
Yeah,
wouldn't have tolerated it.
yeah,
His daughter filled up all the space. No, the but I guess like he's changed, right? He's a I've always compared him to a remora, like one of the fish that hangs off on the shark. And
yeah,
so I guess he's assumed the personality, right, of Trump, right, in
yeah,
Mar-a-Lago, so to speak. Before I let you close it out, I'll just share a John McCain story. Now that we have Pastor Paula, who's a religious nut speaking in tongues, you can go and you find her online. And these were some of John McCain's least favorite people, the hypocritical religious nuts. And during the 2008 campaign, we had a meeting with a bunch of these after he had won the primary, these evangelical types. And one of them starts off the conversation saying, "Hey, you're not a Christian. Um, and we're worried about that. And do you pray?" And McCain, you could tell, was getting really pissed, right? Just being in the room with them and everything. And he,
yeah,
and he kind of gripped the table and he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I pray." He goes, "There's been moments in my life." He goes, "I've had to pray to make it through the next 3 fucking seconds. Go fuck yourself." And he got up
yeah.
and he walked out of the room. And and
That's
right,
incredible.
and that was that
Yeah,
was John that was John McCain. And he would not have tolerated the
yeah,
Lindsey Graham of today. Wouldn't have been around him at all.
yeah,
But Harry, let me give it to you to close it out tonight. And let me just say before we wrap up, you are a person that fits a very specific archetype in the American story, um, which is almost providentially the country produces out of its population patriots and heroes and calls them forward. A great example of this is Dwight Eisenhower, is a lieutenant colonel in the army who hasn't been promoted in 13 years in 1939. And so whatever it is you're going to do in the service of your country, I think you're just getting started.
thank
You
you.
have been through a crucible. You have been tested. You have met the test, and you have answered the test. And I think that as the country now enters a period of testing, it's going to look on the people that have been on the front of that test to
Yeah,
help guide them through. And you're one of those people now, Officer Dunn, and you will be for the rest of your life a man who stood up when so many laid down. So, with that, I encourage everybody to follow you, to support you in your endeavors. But Harry, what would you like to
yeah,
leave with everybody tonight? I know that there's a lot of people who are nervous, who are scared, and at some level, um, meet this moment by saying, "Hey, I'm going to turn off." And so
yeah,
help these people, the 2,600 that are on with us tonight, give them the ammunition they need to talk to their circle about why you need to be engaged, why you need to stay involved. and anything else you want to say. And with that, Harry's got the last word, and good night from me, everybody. Good to see you again, and thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Listen, like you said, a lot of us are scared. A lot of us are afraid. That is 100% valid. I would be lying to you if I said everything's going to be okay. I don't know if it is, but you know what? I'm going to continue to fight to make sure I can do everything I can to make sure it's going to be okay. Um, your concerns, your worries, they are valid. Surround yourself with people that put you at ease. Don't be afraid to disconnect for a moment. This weekend, I didn't do anything political. I said I'm going to turn off. You know what? God willing, the country will be here on Monday, and I'll get back to work. Don't be afraid to unplug. Take some time for yourself. Mental health is fucking real, man, and you have to tap in to people that support you, defend your flames, and everything. That's why it's so good hearing you all right now, reading these comments. Um, I wish that I wasn't looked upon as this face. I I don't want to be put on a pedestal. I love drinking bourbon. I love cursing. I love talking shit with my friends. I speed. I run red lights at times. I am not a fucking perfect person at all. At all. So I hate being put on this pedestal. But if doing the right thing or believing in your convictions and what you believe is right, fighting for the little guy makes you belong on a pedestal, then I guess I'll take it. Um, I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. But one thing I do want to ask you all as a favor: support the people that are out there fighting for you. And I'm not talking about financially or anything like that. Give them words, give them encouragement. Don't just say you fucking, excuse me, pussy. Do something. Sorry, I know that word offends people, but I've seen it. People say, do something. Give them words of encouragement. Your elected officials that aren't doing enough, don't call and curse them out. Call and tell them what you want them to do better. Because when you start cursing out people, they tune out. They view you as an enemy. When they're trying to fight for you. They might not be doing it in the most effective way, but lean on the people. Don't abandon the people that are out there fighting for you. Sure, everybody's messaging may not be the same, and people are scared, and people are don't know. This is the most unprecedented shit of time ever. There's no roadmap for this. There's no. What are we supposed to do? Everybody's got a lot of opinions, but we shouldn't even be here right now. Let's focus our anger at the people who have us in this position, and let's support the people who are trying to get us out of it. Um, so, with that, I appreciate you. Thank you, Steve, for this platform. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. And yeah, I'm not going anywhere, guys. I'm here. Talk to y'all soon.
Harry Dunn, great American. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, and I invite you to join, subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.